Okay, with composite figures, these are generally our level 3 questions, but with composite figures, it's all about having a plan. So if I look at this figure, I want to see what types of shapes that I know that make up this figure. So if I look at this picture, I see a cone here on the end, and then I see a cylinder in the middle, and then I see a hemisphere on the other end. So I want to find, let's talk about surface area first. So I want to find the lateral area of the hemisphere, the lateral area of the cylinder, and the lateral area of the cone. Let's start with the cone first. So if I see that this is 16 going all the way across the cylinder, I know that the radius is going to be 8. So then I'm going to do the lateral area of the cone first. So it's going to be 1/2 the circumference of 16 pi times the slant height of 10. So this is going to give me 80 pi. Why did I only find the lateral area of the cone? That's a good question. If you notice, when I have the cone, the cylinder, the hemisphere, and I put them all together, if I had this figure in real life, I wouldn't see the circle bases. So I wouldn't see the 2 circles on the cylinder, I wouldn't see the circle on the hemisphere, and I wouldn't see the circle on the cone. So that's why I'm only taking the lateral area of the cone, cylinder, and hemisphere, because I don't see their bases in the composite figure. Okay, so now let's talk about the cylinder. Again, the cylinder's radius is going to be 8. The height, that's what I have to figure out now. So the whole height of this figure is 24. If I go back to the cone, I can figure out the height of the cone using the Pythagorean theorem. So that's going to be 6. So from the hemisphere to the top of the cone is going to be 24 minus 6, or it's going to be 18. Well, if I look back at this hemisphere, I can really draw the radius in anywhere. I can draw it in where it's at, or I could draw it in going horizontally. That's still going to be the radius, and that's still going to be 8, which means that the height of this cylinder is going to be 10. So now the lateral area of the cylinder is going to be 16 pi, the diameter, times 10, and that's going to be 160 pi. All right, last but not least, your hemisphere. Remember, your hemisphere formula is 4 pi r squared for surface area. But I have half of it, and so I'm going to cut that in half, so 2 pi r squared. And I'm not going to include the base because it's hidden. So this is just going to be 2 pi r squared. So this is 128 pi. So then if I add all 3 of those parts together, 128 plus 160 plus 80, I'm going to get 368. And that would be my surface area. Okay, now volume. Volume is, I think, a little bit simpler because there is no question about whether you take into account the bases or not. So with the volume, okay, remember all about having a plan. So my volume is going to be the volume of the cone, volume of the cylinder, and volume of the hemisphere. So volume of a cone is going to be the area of the base, 64 pi, times the inside height, divided by 3, because it comes to a point. The cylinder is going to be the area of the base, 64 pi, times 10, the height. The hemisphere is going to be 4/3 pi 8 cubed, and this is all going to be multiplied by 1/2. So now if I do 64 times 3 divided by, 64 times 6 divided by 3 will give me 128. So I'm going to come down here. 128 pi plus 64 times 10, which is 640 pi, plus the hemisphere. So 8 cubed times 4 divided by 3, and then divide that by 2. And I'm going to turn it into a fraction. So I got 1,024 thirds pi. Because our calculator won't add these three numbers together because they're too large, they won't give us a fraction, let's just go ahead and turn it into, excuse me, turn it into decimals. So 128 times pi is going to be 402.124. I'm going to use 3 decimal places. 640 times pi is 2010.619. And then 1,024 thirds times pi is going to be 1,072.330. And I'm just going to add these all up. So 402.124 plus 2010.619 plus 1072.330. So for a grand total, you're going to get 3,485.073 in your calculator. Typically, we round to 2 decimal places, which is why when I was going through it, I included an extra decimal place as I was configuring the problem. So if it asks you to round to 2 decimal places as you're going throughout the problem, include one more as you're adding and subtracting and multiplying. So your final answer would be 3,485.07. Okay, it just keeps your rounding pretty consistent and you'll be more accurate in your answer.